Hey everybody, it's Steve at 1000 Year Homes. Welcome aboard. So the rain has come and I've been busy, but it's time to put the final couple of rows on the Earthbag on that side right there, all right, versus HyperAdobe on that side. So which is better? You know, what is better in life? And I'm going to tell you right now, they're not better. They both have their place. They both have their need. So for ad hoc construction, right, just throwing up something quick, I'm finding that the bags here, it's pretty easy just to fill them up, put them down. They're wider, bigger. They just bam, 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 bam. It seems to be going a little faster for me. But I'm telling you, the HyperAdobe, if you have a time for a good proper layout, a proper thought, it goes down, I feel, much more secure, even though that's half the length. It's only 12 inches wide versus that which is 18 or even 20 inches wide. So much safer walking on that, the HyperAdobe, than I do on those bags. The bags don't feel like they'd stay as well. They don't feel as secure. They're not made for... these are grain sacks that I've repurposed, are polyethylene grain sacks, so they don't feel like they're going to last as long. The HyperAdobe feels like it's a better product. It snags and tears easier, a lot easier than the bags do, and the bags aren't even double bagged. But my vote is still for the HyperAdobe. If you look at it, it's a neater product, right? It went down, it's neater, more organized, tighter. It feels more solid. Lastly, I don't have to do any additional work with the HyperAdobe for stucco. You know, I will go around the outside and I'll pound it so it's flat here. I'll put in the shape of a cliff, but I could put stucco straight onto that right now. The Earthbag, I have to first put a layer of mesh on it, which I'm going to do, but what's faster? I'm not even sure that I'm going to answer that question. It's just going to be a demonstration of what I do. So I'm going to take my bucket. I'm going to fill up the last couple of rows of Earthbag, and I'm going to run it on the camera and just keep track of time on the camera, and then I might speed walk it, and we'll do a comparison that way. So cut out the bottom of your thing. If you watch my videos, you'll see I used an angle grinder. And that way I didn't have all kinds of loose chips to sweep up. And then you just put your bags over it. Don't be tempted to put your bag inside the bucket. Put the bag about where you need it. Don't you know, drag it around a lot. Put it where you need it. Another nice thing about the bag, I can use bigger clumps, things that have some stones in it. I know that a lot of people in the Earthbag, they sift it all through screens. I didn't do that. I just mixed it all up right here. Added 10% clay, 10% cement to it, and away I go. So I fill up a bucket and a half is what I'm putting inside of your typical grain bag. See if it's even got me. I might be a little smidgen off screen. Nope.
All right, my intention here, obviously this is sped up, right? I'm not in a race. I'm not trying to build these walls as fast as possible. I am just simply trying to see which is more convenient, which is more professional. And these Earthbags are actually feed sacks turned inside out, nothing special. So they're free to me. I don't think I should count that. When you go on to like Uline and you look at sandbags, they're expensive. They're as expensive as HyperAdobe. So although these were free to me and the local farming community would give me these for as many as a mountain. I could get a mountain of these given to me. There's other things going on here. So the bucket idea was a great idea. Start with that. And my first time I did this, I stuck the bag inside the bucket. Don't do that. Oh my gosh, it was so much, just ridiculous that I did it that way. This is the right way, a hole cut in the bottom of the bucket. All right. So now I'm putting the Earthbag where they belong. Obviously, if I was building a 10 or 12 foot wall, I would need scaffolding. And additionally, I'm doing this okay for this little retaining wall. It's not really retaining anything, and I'll drive rebar through it. But Earthbag wall that's going up in a building, you need to make sure you're plumb. You need to make sure you're level. You need to make sure there's barbed wire between the rolls that is snagged in. There's a lot more function to building with the Earthbag. And overall, this would make it harder as doing little incremental units like this, Earthbag, incremental units, compared to the HyperAdobe, which is a big, long sock. So the HyperAdobe tends to keep itself in order and neat order. And it's one contiguous construction thing where this is lots of littles. So, but here I am. This is the hardest part, right? It rained. My clay is super heavy. I'm going underneath the bridge. The next round, I have to be on my knees, shoveling on my knees. Then I pick it up and I throw it up on top. Oh my gosh, it took all my energy away. And because I only wanted to do this once, I didn't want to do it twice. I a little bit overfilled this bag. So I went from a normal bag weight of about 80 pounds, clear up into 100, maybe even 120. Again, it's been raining, so the sand and stuff is super heavy, you know. And there I am trying to figure out how to do this. I put down my knee pad because I knew that this was going to hurt. And there, crawling in, you know, 1, 2, 3, doesn't even go up. 1, 2, 3, doesn't go up. 1, 2, 3, doesn't go. Finally, right, I had to muster up the strength. That's another thing. I find I can do 8 Earthbags of about 100 pounds each before I need maybe a 15-minute break. I'm an older guy. I may not look it, but I'm an older guy. Here I've gone around to the other side so you can see the last thing. So I've done 4 Earthbags, and here I'm doing another 4. About 4 is where I start really feeling it too. Although I can do 8 in between sessions. And this is, I'm putting the dirt in a little at a time where it is. If I was doing a high wall, I'd have lots of buckets that I'd fill up. And not all the way either. I do buckets like half full, so they're 40 pounds, and carry them up. You would last a lot longer doing more smaller sizes than just trying to man up 100-pounders, right? So anyway, this was difficult. The other thing you'll notice is when I have to accommodate something like a curve or something like that, the Earthbag squares off against itself and becomes a bit of a disruptor. The next Earthbag I have to do, I kind of have to fill it weirdly. I have to pound it weirdly. I have to accommodate that there's a corner sticking out. That wasn't so good. Now, the real strength of the Earthbag, other than it was free, or sandbags if you want to call it that, but this is an Earthbag. It's mixed with stabilized concrete, so it'll harden up eventually. But the real strength of it, I can shovel anything into it within reason. Obviously not a boulder, but anything into it, and it goes in fast. So, but HyperAdobe, I have to be aware that I need to be able to move it into the sock down a smaller opening. The compression's different. So I get kind of sloppy here with the Earthbags, and I throw in some big hunks of clay. Again, on a house, I would have screed all that out. But on this wall, it'll be fine. Once I'm done and I pound the Earthbag through, I'll pound the rebars through. I'll leave a tip sticking up, and there'll be a concrete cap poured over all of this. So it's not going anywhere. Then it'll be stuccoed. It's not going anywhere. It's all of the same material, so it's not going anywhere. So be careful just not looking at me and going, oh, I'll do that. But be careful how you build. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so putting 8 Earthbags around the top of that cliff that I'm building took 29 minutes. Now, that didn't include the time of turning the bags inside and out, which you might not have to do. I mean, right, But I wanted to turn them inside out so that the seams would be on the inside, so they wouldn't have ears sticking out, which is a pain in the neck when people stucco. They complain about it. So, in like manner, I went ahead, since those bags were already turned inside out, I went ahead and cut the 18 feet that I need to go around. Now it's probably only 16 feet because I'm getting smaller. But across the top of the HyperAdobe. And I'll start with me putting it on this. Now this came off a wood chipper. It's about 40 pounds. It's pretty heavy to use for this particular use case. I like the little ice bucket that I had that's aluminum or stainless steel. I went online to look at what the Earthbag fillers are, and anywhere between $75 and $100 for something that looks like a traffic cone made of plastic. I refuse to pay $75 for a traffic cone. This thing, depending on the size you get, mine is 12 inches, right? I think you're better off buying a little piece of plastic sewer pipe and a little fitting, and building it yourself with just plastic on the top, or like my aluminum can. So anyway, the benchmark is a half hour or so for 8 Earthbags. This will be about the same distance around, so I'll see if I can do it faster in a half hour. When I got underneath the bridge and I had to fill it on the ground because there's no room for my shovel, I had to pick that bag up and put it, and it's full of water and clay, wet clay. So it was every bit of 80 to 100 pounds. Took a lot out of me. It honestly did. So this, because they're just little buckets at a time, it just feels better, except for the fact that I have this wood chipper piece at the start. The only reason I have it is a full 18 feet doesn't scrunch onto the ice bucket. So you know what else would work? Those old fireplace buckets for coals, right? That would work. You could turn that upside down and feed a lot onto it. Cut the bottom out of it. So I'll look for one of those. Anything other than paying $75 for a traffic cone, plastic traffic cone to fill sandbags. Come on. All right, without further ado, let me start. I'll turn this on. We'll see how long it'll take me to do a whole row. It is late, so it might get dark. I'll apologize ahead of time. But I'm curious what the comparison is between these two. I'm going to tell you I prefer the HyperAdobe a lot more. Now, Earthbag, because I'm in a farming community, I'm able to get the bags for free. But I'm telling you, can look at the HyperAdobe just in the video and see it is much more organized. It just organizes itself. I can make adjustments. Big fan of it. Big fan of it.
Well, my preference for the HyperAdobe's, it clearly shows up here. So now I did have to do stuff because I wasn't real level. I'm building straight on the clay. I don't care. Most people would put down a little rubble. On a house, I'd put down a rubble wall. But you'll see that there's a small section right there that I use to kind of taper it level. There's a couple of the times where I taper it level. That's simply because I didn't make my base square. I didn't care. And that is one of the advantages of Earthbag. It's organic. You could take up a little bit of slack, make up for it a little bit. Blocks, I couldn't have done this. Stonework, I couldn't have done this. But since I'm using earth that's already used to being flexible, it works out real well. So this wood chipper, it's a heavy-duty wood chipper spout that I'm using to fill this bag. It is heavy in and of itself, but I just want to get this job done. If I had time, I would have go get the plasticware that I mentioned, either a drain, like a culvert, a plastic culvert, to match. I have both 12-inch circumference and 8-inch circumference bags to fill, so I'm going to need both. But look how fast this is going together, even with that heavy wrong component that I'm using for the sock. I shake it all down and then I get it realigned the way that I want it. I'm able to change things in flight. With Earthbags, if I had one Earthbag that was wrong, I wouldn't be able to fix that whole row. This thing, I was able to just rotate the socks. And even though I had a big row done, I was able to rotate the socks and just get that done. The alignment part of it's better. Since it's all an onion mesh, the earth goes through the mesh into the next earth and binds itself to the next row. You can see walking on it that the Earthbags kind of gave a little bit, but this HyperAdobe gives not at all. I mean, I'm walking on it. Plus, I could get a lot plumb. If I was building walls, plumb would be a lot easier on this product. And everything about this, just a superior product. I know that it costs you money, but I like it better.
All right, so what you need to have happen when you're doing comparisons is for your memory card to go full and stop when you're 70% of the way on the other test. However, you can see that it was 11 minutes for me to get 70% of the way around. Took me a half hour, so that means at least 15 minutes to get to the halfway point. I'm going to count this as faster, but there is 5 rows of Earthbags. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of HyperAdobe. So even though one's a half hour and one's 20 minutes, by the time I add the extra, extra row to get the same height as a bag, I'm going to call them they're the same speed. It is kind of easier. The big opening of a bag, it was just any old thing I could throw in there. So if I had an any old thing kind of soil, I'd go with the Earthbag. If it's not my house, if I'm building a home, I'd want to sieve it. I'd want to have control. I'd want to have a mixing yard, and I'd want to use HyperAdobe. Look how nice that looks. Now, where am I going to make up the time? Well, because HyperAdobe is already stuck to each other, I didn't have to add the barbed wire, which I did it on this low wall because I'm going to just drive rebar in there. But if you had to snip barbed wire, and you had to put barbed wire between the rows, like on a 10-foot tall house, then you're going to have to put a cookie sheet underneath each Earthbag because you're not going to be able to adjust it once the barbed wire grabs it, right? Where this, you can adjust infinitely until you tamp it down, and then it's there. It's there. So, HyperAdobe for the speed, because I didn't use barbed wire here. I'm going to tell you, HyperAdobe for the speed, also for the professionalism. I mean, just look. I know it's low light. You can see with your own eyeballs that looks a lot better than that. Therefore, when I stucco this, it's going to be a lot easier to stucco than stucco that. Lastly, before I can stucco that, I have to put a stucco grid on it. Some people use chicken wire. For this particular test, I actually bought the right stuff. So I'm going to use that. So it looks to me like I need 2 more rows on here and another row on there, but I'm going to use small Earthbags on that to make the last row. I'm looking for a cliff, right? I want to stain these like red rock, so these will look like faux cliffs when I'm done. There'll be rocks sticking out of it, like shelves for the frogs to sit on, etc., etc. So, but this video today, and I'm going to wrap it up, was a comparison between HyperAdobe, direct comparison. Same soil, same area, same job, direct comparison. And HyperAdobe overall is going to be faster, even if you have to run an extra row per 5 rows, I'm going to guess. 5 rows of Earthbag is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 rows of HyperAdobe, depending if you get the 18-inch wide or these are just 12-inch wide. You get the wider ones, you can match that. So, and then stuccoing. Man, this is going to be so much easier to stucco. So pull way far away. Lastly, driving down the rods. I'm going to drive them in both sides so that it holds. But I'm pleased. I'm going to be a HyperAdobe man. Bags aren't free. If you don't live in a farming community where you could get access to grain bags, they're expensive too. So just go with the HyperAdobe, even if it's a few more pennies. Using the little bucket like I did. Now, it was 40 pounds that I was picking up and doing that, but if I had built that out of PVC, and it was lightweight, this would have been even faster and less exhausting. I was exhausted when I was done with that. I needed 15 minutes before I could start this. I could run another row is what I could have done. But anyway, that's my comparison. Sorry it's so dark. It is rainy and stormy. I'm in the mud doing this, and it's dark. So I appreciate y'all. Like, subscribe, follow me along.